I think one thing that's really starting to die out nowadays is the whole respect your elders thing. The reason that I think it started in the first place is because my parents' elders, i.e. my great-grandparents, they were in the Second World War. And even if you weren't fighting in the Second World War, it would have directly affected you. You would have had to live off of rations, you would have had to live frugally and do everything your own way, the hard way, when life wasn't very easy. Now, when they were elders, you had World War One. Before that, you probably had the Boer War. And you had all these people with lots of life experience. Things that were difficult that you now don't have to do. And so you'd have to, you would respect them for the fact that they've gone through a hard time. Now, I'm 23. And the elders to me are sort of people that are 50 and upwards, I suppose. But you see, literally what difficulties have they been through that I won't have gone through? It's their generation that's literally just pissed down onto ours. So, when I'm thinking about, respect your elders, they haven't gone through any large conflict. They didn't endure World War II. They bought a house for probably 3 times their annual wage, and now it's like 9 times the average wage. Index funds like the S&P 500, they're up thousands of percent. The last 50 years, the S&P 500 has given an annual return of about 11.5%. So, it boggles the mind to think that I need to respect them for the fact that they haven't done anything. They're just, the only difference between me now and someone that is 50 years older than me is they have just existed for longer. They lived in a country that had less rape, less murder, less assault, less theft. They lived in an overall nicer country than I will ever get to see. And for some reason, I have to respect them just because they're older. I think that worked when, 100 years ago, all these elders, they didn't have electricity, they didn't have plumbing, they didn't have supermarkets, all these different things that, we now have them. But that's just literally not true anymore. I just don't respect the elders. In fact, I'm actually pissed off at them because they've lived through all these many years of prosperity, and yet they're the ones driving these old dingers, crashing into things and buying yellow sticker bread. Well, what's the excuse for that? People now just leaning into the state pension. I'm only 23, and I've already had my private pension been paid into for a little while because I don't understand this thing of people this entitlement. I think that's the biggest thing that the current elder generation have, is this sense of entitlement. It's you brats don't want to work anymore. You can't afford a house because you're always buying stuff. But why? First of all, what I can't wrap my head around is, have they missed the point in their head where buying stuff shouldn't be that expensive anyway? I'm talking a coffee from I don't know, Starbucks or somewhere like that. It's half an hour's wage. How is that acceptable? So, no, seriously, it's one of those, it just really, grinds my gears. Respect your elders. Okay, fair enough. If we're on a bus and there's some old cripple, I'll give my seat to him. Stuff like that, you know what I mean? And if someone is actually more successful, someone that's old and they're doing really well for themselves, like my grandparents, for example, me specifically, I'll have successful grandparents, so I always listen to everything they've got to say. But there are just some old scroats out there that just expect you to, respect them just because they're old. And the bloody people that sit around going, you don't know anything, you're just a kid. Meanwhile, I've done more in the last 5 years than they've done in the last 50. So, I don't know, ranting for the sake of ranting. I just think that this whole thing of respect your elders is really going to start dying out in the next few years. And it's only down to us now to bring that back. So when we're the elders in 50 years from now, for example, will the younger generation have anything to look to us and say, wow, you really made some sacrifices for us, we're very grateful? You know what I mean? The generation that went through the First and Second World War, whether we look back at it the same way that they would like us to or not, I don't really. But to the best of their knowledge, I understand they were making a big sacrifice for our country. And so I'm always very grateful for that. And I think the next few years for us, we're going to have to make sacrifices. Look at, what Rupert Lowe is promising to us. Is he promising good things? No, as in he's not promising an easy life. And so if we endure a harder life to get the country back in a good way, then I think, yeah, our grandchildren probably will have respect for us for putting in a graft and sorting the country out. But if the Greens get in, because the Greens are just going to, you know, basically put everyone on the dole and crash the economy horrifically and open the borders and let everybody in, then again, I think our grandchildren won't admire us at all. So I suppose the ball's in our court now.